In this episode, you'll see one of the strongest magicians against Mash and his friends. Their battle will be fierce and very dangerous. There's no telling if everyone will survive the battle and whether Mash will be able to withstand the blows of fate. Because in this episode, Mash's secret will be revealed. Abel has given Abyss permission to use his magic eye for good. He remembered this act of kindness and had a duty to warn his friend of such a threat he faced in the hallway. That same evening at Mash's house, at the table his father and the very evil one were sitting and talking to his father and the evil policeman. Dad was very worried about his son and that others might find out that Mash couldn't use magic. And to the policeman, this prospect doesn't bode well either. And let me remind you that this story is about how Mash is an ordinary man in our world, but extraordinary in the magical world because he has no magic. Goes to a magical academy trying to become a top student, a divine conduct. And so our friends celebrate the victory over the Lupus clan. But Mash interrupted this celebration because he had to go to the bathroom. Thanks to their friends, all the students who had been turned into puppets are now back to being normal people, which is a relief. Instead of Mesh, the guys were approached by Zell, the same magician who defeated Abyss in the corridor with the help of his ally. With a wave of his hand, he swept his friends out of his way. This made an already fiery Dot very angry. Zell approached Abel to ask him about his defeat, realizing that Abel had indeed lost to some weaker magicians. Zell humiliated and insulted him in public. Immediately, he took control of the mag's hands with some kind of pink flame. Abel couldn't help it, and his hands closed around his own neck. He had already done his part, pulled out some info, but that's all. He's more than that. So now he can be disposed of. That's exactly how Zell managed his men. At the most critical moment, Mash appeared in the doorway with a tray of cream cakes. Mash appeared. It just so happened that a nasty fly had landed on the guy's nose and he sneezed so hard that all his cakes flew right into the villain's face. Such insolence even made Zell let go of Abel. Mash tried to remedy the situation by apologizing, but it seems to have made things worse. And then Zell suddenly got a headache. He got a resonance, which means only one thing. He's got the man he's been looking for years. But the first thing he has to do is finish what he started and kill his former assistant. He recreated his violet fire around his former subject and lifted him into the air. And now he almost killed Abel by pointing the black rock at him. Not even Mash was able to get there in time. It all happened too fast. The only one who was able to react was Abyss. He shielded Abel, taking the blow for himself. It was critical damage. Unfortunately for him, he won't be able to fulfill his promise and just sit peacefully with Mash and eat his cake. Zell was very surprised that he was hitting full force. But Abyss was still alive. And that's because Mash threw a rock at him while he was using his power, knocking him out of focus and reduced the damage of the blow. The villain began insulting the wounded Abyss, pushing on the sore. This was where Mash couldn't contain himself any longer. He got angry. He stomped his foot and broke the floor, tossed one of the cobblestones and pointed it right at Zell. It didn't do the rest of the work because the mage simply intercepted the stone with one hand. Instead of scaring his opponent, Mash only made him more afraid now. Zell intended to kill not only Abel, but also Mash to boot. That didn't scare the boy. He didn't have time to be scared. He had to get Mr. Mask to the infirmary first before he could deal with his other problems. Because of Abyss bleeding didn't last long, just half an hour, and in that half hour, Mash to defeat the enemy. Just then, Zell recreated several purple funnels from which the stone tentacles were directed at Mash. The The guy stood up too and fought back and fought off the magic. Then the enemy struck even harder, which Mash couldn't fight back. This amused Zell greatly. At this point, it was clear to everyone that Mash could not defeat this opponent. Their abilities are on completely different levels. Abel thought again about his past and his mother, who told him that everything they had was theirs by fate. And if they hadn't, they could have been just like everyone else. That's why you can't be conceited. Zell was about to strike Abel again, but Mash covered him. You guys don't have a chance to beat such a tough opponent. Yes, indeed, for now, Mash still can hold his ground and can fend off magic. But how much longer would he last? Zell began to put his full weight on his body. But even so, Mash wasn't giving up. Abyss was only getting worse. He remembered all the evil people that had come along the way, who didn't accept him, insulted him, and tried to banish him from society for his evil eye. And now the only one who accepted him for who he was Abel. He was very grateful to him. That's why he saved him. Meanwhile, Mash was getting injuries from Zell's magical strike, still standing on his feet and acting as a human shield. It was painful for the friends to watch their comrade fighting for them, but they could not do anything about it. There was nothing they could do to help. Dot was questioning what to do, to leave Lemon and Finn and go to Mash's aid, or to stand aside and stay out of the way. When the boy was almost out of strength, he was protected by a huge puppet of Abel. With just a few blocks of stone, he managed to destroy the puppet. At least he thought so. In reality, it was just a distraction so Mash could strike afterwards. He asked the guy what kind of magic he had. Mash had nothing to say because he didn't have any. So Zell took out his magic reflecting mirror, which could reflect any magic directed in his direction. This is one of the most dangerous artifacts, because one's own weapon becomes against its master. The friends tried to talk Mash into backing down. The guy just went ahead and smashed the glass with his foot. Then the friends realized that all those times Mash had been defeating had never used magic. After the contact with Mash, Zell had another headache and a certain mark appeared on his arm. Around him appeared huge black hands that grabbed him and dragged him into the portal. So the boys had defeated their rival by forcing him to leave. Abel thanked his savior, thanked his rescuer, and promised to repay his act of kindness. The first to learn Mash's secret that he had no magic were his loyal friends. But he had confidence in them and knew they definitely wouldn't betray or tell anyone. But if anyone else found out, it would be one exception away from being the only exception. Mash would be in huge trouble, so he better keep his mouth shut. Well, it looks like the friends were already in trouble because one of the students woke up and heard, who overheard everything. He was determined to tell the teachers, professors, and the principal everything. What to do now?